Good evening, Internet. People of the web of the interweb. I hope all of you are well and have a good day. I've worked on my chore list today like a good boy. And we'll see how that goes. Let's see if it's what I did is gonna stick. I changed out our old squatty toilet for a newer, taller one, and cracked the bottom of it in front. And accidentally was almost dropped it, and it hit the tile floor and almost ruined the whole thing. But hopefully the epoxy will keep it from traveling further. And porcelain, you never know. I cried like a baby. I wailed. It was horrible. I'm not gonna lie, because I don't know how, and I'm a horrible liar. Not a very good storyteller because of that, I think. But it is what it is, and yeah, I had tears streaming down my face. Just I thought I'd ruined it. I think I've done the last toilet I'm ever going to do in my life, though. Finding my hands aren't as strong as they used to be, and things just don't work like they used to, and I don't work like I used to. Body gets older, and you got to make adjustments, right? Life is about learning how to adjust to all the changes, and there's a lot of changes in life. That's the only thing consistent about life, is change. Think about it. All right, enough of my babbles. I'm gonna go to one chapter at a time, and if the two videos are short enough, I'll combine them into one video. But that battery doesn't like to run more than one chapter, apparently. Alrighty, so there is the Munchkin Ojo who got arrested. And this must be Princess Dorothy. She's a very beautiful little girl, huh? Dorothy Gale was sitting in one of her rooms in the royal palace, while curled up at her feet was a little black dog with a shaggy coat and very bright eyes. She wore a plain white frock without any jewels or other ornaments except an emerald green hair ribbon. For Dorothy was a simple little girl and had not been in the least spoiled by the magnificence surrounding her. Once the child had lived in the Kansas prairies, but she seemed marked for adventure, for she had made several trips to the land of Oz before she came to live there for good. Her very best friend was the beautiful Ozma of Oz, who loved Dorothy so well that she kept her in her own palace so as to be near her. The girl's Uncle Henry and Aunt Em, the only relatives she had in the world, had also been brought here by Ozma and given a pleasant home. Dorothy knew almost everybody in Oz, and it was she who had discovered the Scarecrow, the Tin Woodman, and the Cowardly Lion, as well as Tick-Tock, the Clockwork Man. Her life was very pleasant now, and although she had been made a Princess of Oz by her friend Ozma, she did not care much to be a princess, and remained as sweet as when she had been playing Dorothy Gale of Kansas. Dorothy was reading in a book this evening when Jellia Jam, the favorite servant maid of the palace, came to say that the Shaggy Man wanted to see her. "All right," said Dorothy. "Tell him to come right up." "But he has some queer creatures with him, some of the queerest I've ever laid eyes on," reported Jellia. "Never mind. Let 'em all come up," replied Dorothy. But when the door opened to admit not only the Shaggy Man, but Scraps, the Woozy, and the Glass Cat, Dorothy jumped up and looked at her strange visitors in amazement. The Patchwork Girl was the most curious of all, and Dorothy was uncertain at first whether Scraps was really alive or only a dream or a nightmare. Toto, her dog, slowly uncurled himself and going to the Patchwork Girl sniffed at her inquiringly. But soon he lay down again, as if to say he had no interest in such an irregular creation. "You're a new one to me," Dorothy said reflectively, addressing the Patchwork Girl. "I can't imagine where you've come from." "Who, me?" asked Scraps, looking around the pretty room instead of at the girl. "Oh, I came from a bed quilt, I guess. That's what they say, anyhow. Some call it a crazy quilt and some a patchwork quilt. But my name is Scraps, and now you know all about me." Is it combing her hair? Or yarn? Yarn for hair. "Not quite all," returned Dorothy with a smile. "I wish you'd tell me how you came to be alive." "That's an easy job," said Scraps, sitting upon a big upholstered chair and making the springs bounce her up and down. "Margolot wanted a slave, so she made me out of an old bed quilt she didn't use. Cotton stuffing, suspender button eyes, red velvet tongue, pearl beads for teeth. The crooked magician made a powder of life, sprinkled me with it, and here I am. Perhaps you've noticed my different colors. A very refined and educated gentleman named the Scarecrow, whom I met, told me I am the most beautiful creature in all Oz, and I believe it." "Oh, you have met our Scarecrow, then?" asked Dorothy, a little puzzled to understand the brief history related. "Yes, isn't he jolly?" "The Scarecrow has many good qualities," replied Dorothy, "but I'm sorry to hear all this about the crooked magician. Ozma'll be mad as hops when she hears he's been doing magic again. She told him not to." "He only practices magic for the benefit of his own family," explained Bungle, who was keeping at a respectful distance from the little black dog. "Dear me," said Dorothy, "I hadn't noticed you before. Are you glass or what?" "I'm glass, and transparent too, which is more than can be said of some folks," answered the cat. "Also, I have some lovely pink brains. You can see 'em work." "Oh, is that so? Come over here and let me see." The glass cat hesitated, eyeing the dog. "Send that beast away, and I will," she said. "Beast? Why, that's my dog Toto, and he's the kindest dog in all the world. Toto knows a good many things, too. Most as much as I do, I guess." "Why doesn't he say anything?" asked Bungle. "He can't talk, not being a fairy dog," explained Dorothy. "He's just a common United States dog, but that's a good deal, and I understand him, and he understands me, just as well as if he could talk." Toto, at this, got up and rubbed his head softly against Dorothy's hand, which she held out to him, and he looked up into her face as if he had understood every word she had said. "This cat, Toto," she said to him, "is made of glass, so you mustn't bother it or chase it any more than you do my pink kitten. It's probably brittle and might break if it bumped against anything." "Woof!" said Toto, and that meant he understood. The glass cat was so proud of her pink brains that she ventured to come close to Dorothy in order that the girl might see him work. This was really interesting, but when Dorothy patted the cat, she found the glass cold and hard and unresponsive. So she decided at once that Bungo would never do for a pet. "What do you know about the crooked magician who lives on the mountain?" asked Dorothy. "He made me," replied the cat, "so I know all about him. The Patchwork girl is new, 3 or 4 days old, but I've lived with Dr. Pip for years, and though I don't much care for him, I will say that he has always refused to work magic for any of the people who come to his house. He thinks there's no harm in doing magic things for his own family, and he made me out of glass because the meat cats drink too much milk. He also made Scraps come to life so she could do the housework for his wife, Margolot." "Then why did you both leave him?" asked Dorothy. "I think you'd better let me explain that," interrupted the Shaggy Man, and then he told Dorothy all of Ojo's story, and how Unc Nunkie and Margolot had accidentally been turned to marble by the liquid of petrification. Then he related how the boy had started out in search of the things needed to make the magic charm, which would restore the unfortunates to life, and how he had found the Woozy and taken him along because he could not pull the 3 hairs out of its tail. Dorothy listened to all this with much interest and thought so far Ojo had acted very well. But when the Shaggy Man told her of the Munchkin boy's arrest by the soldier with the green whiskers, because he was accused of willfully breaking a law of Oz, the little girl was greatly shocked. "What do you suppose he's done?" she asked. "I fear he has picked a six-leaf clover," answered the Shaggy Man sadly. "I did not see him do it, and I warned him that to do so was against the law, but perhaps that is what he did, nevertheless." I'm sorry about that," said Dorothy gravely. "For now there will be no one to help his poor uncle and Margolot, except this Patchwork girl, the Woozy, and the glass cat." "Don't mention it," said Scraps. "That's no affair of mine. Margolot and Unc Nunkie are perfect strangers to me. For the moment I came to life, they came to marble." "I see," remarked Dorothy with a sigh of regret. "The woman forgot to give you a heart." "I'm glad she did," retorted the Patchwork girl. "A heart must be a great annoyance to one. It makes a person feel sad or sorry or devoted or sympathetic, all of which sensations interfere with one's happiness." "I have a heart," murmured the glass cat. "It's made of a ruby, but I don't imagine I shall let it bother me about helping Unc Nunkie and Margolot." "That's a pretty hard heart of yours," said Dorothy. "And the Woozy, of course." "Why, as for me," observed the Woozy, who was reclining on the floor with his legs doubled under him, so that he looked much like a square box, "I have never seen those unfortunate people you are speaking of, and yet I am sorry for them, having at times been unfortunate myself. When I was shut up in that forest, I longed for someone to help me, and by Ojo came and did help me, so I'm willing to help his uncle. I'm only a stupid beast, Dorothy, but I can't help that, and if you'll tell me what to do to help Ojo and his uncle, I'll gladly do it." Dorothy walked over and patted the Woozy on his square head. "You're not pretty," she said, "but I like you. What are you able to do? Anything special?" "I can make my eyes flash fire, real fire, when I'm angry. When anyone says Crizzle Crew to me, I get angry, and then my eyes flash fire." "I don't see as fireworks could help Ojo's uncle," remarked Dorothy. "Can you do anything else?" I thought I had a very terrifying growl," said the Woozy with hesitation, "but perhaps I was mistaken." Yes, said the Shaggy Man, you were certainly wrong about that. Then he turned to Dorothy and added, what will become of the Munchkin boy? I don't know, she said, shaking her head thoughtfully. Ozma will see him about it, of course, and then she'll punish him. But how, I don't know, 'cause no one ever has been punished in Oz since I knew anything about the place. Too bad, Shaggy Man, isn't it? While they were talking, Scraps had been roaming around the room and looking at all the pretty things it contained. And there's the pretty Dorothy. It's a nice picture of her. She had carried Ojo's basket in her hand until now, which she decided to see what was inside it. She found the bread and cheese, which she had no use for, and the bundle of charms, which were curious but quite a mystery to her. Then, turning these over, she came upon the 6-leaf clover which the boy had plucked. Scraps was quick-witted, and although she had no heart, she recognized the fact that Ojo was her first friend. She knew at once that because the boy had taken the clover he had been imprisoned, and she understood that Ojo had given her the basket so they would not find the clover in his possession and have proof of his crime. So, turning her head to see that no one noticed her, she took the clover from the basket and dropped it into a golden vase that stood on Dorothy's table. Then she came forward and said to Dorothy, I wouldn't care to help Ojo's uncle, but I will help Ojo. He did not break the law. No one can prove he did, and that green-whiskered soldier had no right to arrest him. Ozma ordered the boy's arrest, said Dorothy, and of course she knew what she was doing. But if you can prove Ojo is innocent, they will set him free at once. They'll have to prove him guilty, won't they? Asked Scraps. I suppose so. Well, they can't do that, declared the Patchwork Girl, as it was nearly time for Dorothy to dine with Ozma, which she did every evening. She rang for a servant and ordered the Woozy taken to a nice room and given plenty of such food as he liked best. That's honeybees, said the Woozy. You can't eat honeybees, but you'll be given something just as nice, Dorothy told him. Then she had the glass cat taken to another room for the night, and the Patchwork Girl she kept in one of her own rooms, for she was much interested in the strange creature and wanted to talk with her again and try to understand her better. Dorothy and Woozy. Wagging his tail. Oh, goodness. All right, break time. Okay, so we'll experiment and see if just taking a break from recording lets it cool off, or if I actually have to turn this stupid thing off and let it cool down. I don't know. We'll find out and see how far we get with this chapter. Ozma and her friends. The Shaggy Man had a room of his own in the royal palace, so there he went to change his shaggy suit of clothes for another just as shaggy but not so dusty from travel. He selected a costume of peacock green and pink satin and velvet, with embroidered shags on all the edges and iridescent pearls for ornaments. Then he bathed in an alabaster pool and brushed his shaggy hair and whiskers the wrong way to make them still more shaggy. This accomplished and arrayed in his splendid shaggy garments, he went out to Ozma's banquet hall and found the Scarecrow, the Wizard, and Dorothy already assembled there. The Scarecrow getting his face fixed. The Scarecrow had made a quick trip and returned to the Emerald City with his left ear freshly painted. A moment later, while they all stood in waiting, a servant threw open a door, the orchestra struck up a tune, and Ozma of Oz entered. Much has been told and written concerning the beauty of person and character of this sweet girl ruler of the land of Oz, the richest, the happiest, and most delightful fairyland of which we have any knowledge. Yet, with all her queenly qualities, Ozma is a real girl and enjoyed the things in life that other real girls enjoy. When she sat on her splendid emerald throne in the great throne room of her palace and made laws and settled disputes and tried to keep all her subjects happy and contented, she was as dignified and demure as any queen might be. But when she had thrown aside her jewel robe of state and her scepter and had retired to her private apartments, the girl, joyous, light-hearted, and free, replaced the sedate ruler. In the banquet hall tonight were gathered only old and trusted friends, so here Ozma was herself a mere girl. She greeted Dorothy with a kiss, and the Shaggy Man with a smile, and the little old wizard with a friendly handshake, and then she pressed the Scarecrow's stuffed arm and cried merrily, "What a lovely left ear! Why, it's 100 times better than the old one." "I'm glad you like it," replied the Scarecrow, well pleased. "Ginger did a neat job, didn't she? And my hearing is now perfect. Isn't it wonderful what a little paint will do, if it's properly applied?" "It really is wonderful," she agreed, as they all took their seats. "But the Sawhorse must have made his legs twinkle to have carried you so far in one day." "I didn't expect you back before tomorrow, at the earliest." "Well," said the Scarecrow, "I met a charming girl on the road and wanted to see more of her, so I hurried back." Ozma laughed. "I know," she returned. "It's the Patchwork girl. She is certainly bewildering, if not strictly beautiful." "Have you seen her, then?" the straw man eagerly asked. "Only in my magic picture, which shows me all scenes of interest in the land of Oz." "I fear the picture didn't do her justice," said the Scarecrow. "It seemed to me that nothing could be more gorgeous," declared Ozma. "Whoever made that patchwork quilt, from which Scraps was formed, must have selected the gayest and brightest bits of cloth that ever were woven." "I am glad you like her," said the Scarecrow in a satisfied tone. Although the straw man did not eat, not being made so he could, he often dined with Ozma and her companions, merely for the pleasure of talking with them. He sat at the table and had a napkin and plate, but the servants knew better than to offer him food. After a little while he asked, "Where is the Patchwork girl now?" "In my room," replied Dorothy. "I've taken a fancy to her. She's so queer and uncommon." "She's half crazy, I think," added the Shaggy Man. "But she is so beautiful," exclaimed the Scarecrow, as if that fact disarmed all criticism. They all laughed at his enthusiasm, but the Scarecrow was quite serious. Seeing that he was interested in Scraps, they forbore to say anything against her. The little band of friends Ozma had gathered around her was so quaintly assorted that much care must be exercised to avoid hurting their feelings or making any one of them unhappy. It was this considerate kindness that held them close friends and enabled them to enjoy one another's society. Another thing they avoided was conversing on unpleasant subjects, and for that reason Ojo and his troubles were not mentioned during the dinner. The Shaggy Man, however, related his adventures with the monstrous plants which had seized and enfolded the travelers, and told how he had robbed Chiss, the giant porcupine, of the quills with which it was accustomed to throwing at people. But Dorothy and Ozma were pleased at this exploit and thought it served Chiss right. Yeah, remember? They threw his quills in the river. Then they talked of the woozy, which was the most remarkable animal any of them had ever seen, except perhaps the live sawhorse. Ozma had never known that her dominions contained such thing as a woozy, there being but one in existence, and this being confined in his forest for many years. Dorothy said she believed the woozy was a good beast, honest and faithful, but she added that she did not care much for the glass cat. Still, said the Shaggy Man, the glass cat is very pretty, and if she were not so conceited over her pink brains, no one would object to her as a companion. The wizard had been eating silently until now, when he looked up and remarked, "That powder of life which is made by the crooked magician is really a wonderful thing. But Dr. Pip does not know its true value, and he uses it in the most foolish ways." "I must see about that," said Ozma gravely. Then she smiled again and continued in a lighter tone. "It was Dr. Pip's famous powder of life that enabled me to become the ruler of Oz." "I've never heard that story," said the Shaggy Man, looking at Ozma questioningly. "Well, when I was a baby girl, I was stolen by an old witch named Bombay and transformed into a boy," began the girl ruler. "I did not know who I was, and when I grew big enough to work, the witch made me wait upon her and carry wood for the fire and hoe in the garden. One day she came back from a journey bringing some of the powder of life which Dr. Pip had given her. I had made a pumpkin-headed man and set it up in her path to frighten her, for I was fond of fun and hated the witch. But she knew what the figure was, and to test her powder of life she sprinkled some of it on the man I had made. It came to life and is now our dear friend Jack Pumpkinhead. That night I ran away with Jack to escape punishment, and I took old Mombi's powder of life with me. During our journey we came upon a wooden sawhorse standing by the road, and I used the magic powder to bring it to life. The sawhorse has been with me ever since. When I got to the Emerald City, the good sorceress Glinda knew who I was and restored me to my proper person, when I became the rightful ruler of this land. So you see, had not old Mombi brought me home the powder of life, I might never have run away from her and become Ozma of Oz, nor would we have had Jack Pumpkinhead and the sawhorse to comfort and amuse us." That story interested the Shaggy Man very much, as well as the others, who had often heard it before. The dinner being now concluded, they all went to Ozma's drawing room, where they passed a pleasant evening before it came time to retire. Glinda the Good. Jack and the Sawhorse. I just heard about them. Yep. Okay. And the next one, Ojo is forgiven. Well, we'll see how she decides about that and why. Next time. So, until then, I hope you're blessed, and I hope you bless others as as we continue on this journey in life, Help others, love each other. Love is the secret of life. Sweet dreams.